if you listen real close to this recording, in the background you can probably hear birds and probably little children. I'm on the back part of the property. The kids are on the front part of the property in front of the house. And of course I think some neighbor kids are over and they're all up there having a good time apparently. That's good to hear, as long as no one has to make an emergency room visit. That's what I always have told my children over the years, is that I have one major rule, and I want it maintained at all times if you're around me. That one rule is no emergency room visits. I dislike emergency room visits. So, you ask any kid that's spent any time with Brad Barfield what the one rule is, or the most important rule is, when they're hanging out. No emergency room visits. Stressful. But there's nothing stressful about this. No, we haven't been on one. That's just my one rule. I don't like those things. But today is definitely not an emergency room visit kind of day. This is the kind of day. It's spring. It's beautiful. The weather is sweet. I hear children play. I see people riding horses from the back of this micro ranch that you could purchase if you really wanted. It's beautiful. There's trees out. They're starting to get green. The children are playing. Everything is just right. And I am out doing a couple of things. I'm out testing my technology. I'm trying to learn to do a couple of new things. One is to be able to utilize technology to a different level, and to go out and to change up what I'm doing some. Change up what I'm doing. In the past, I've learned to go out and give speeches, a lecture or whatever it is you're doing. But in a new role, in a new life, in a new phase, in a new place, what I have to do is communication. And I have to be able to relay certain things and have people to understand it, and not just, provide written instruction or what have you. So I'm kind of changing what it is that I need to do, or what I have to do. What I had to do is it's had to change, and I'm having to change with it. But that's what I'm doing out here. I'm doing that. I'm also trying to take on being able to examine things, my thoughts, from a verbal perspective. And, discussing things from a verbal perspective is a lot different than from the written perspective. I'm trying to express this in as many ways as I can, but it's a totally different experience. And the number one thing is that, you can practice saying something over and over and over again, and you're always going to remember certain little quirky things that you say that you liked, and you're going to miss it at other times. And, so you really want to know what you want to say from your gut, and you want to start just talking about it. You don't want to have to be as guarded, but you need to be. And I'm trying to figure out boundaries on what to speak about. So some of the things that we say in certain situations, they're human. I have conversations with people, see things all the time that are just the craziest things in the world. And of course, with me, I'm not of an offhands kind of person as a lot of people may be. I don't know the answers to everything, so I'm always looking for those answers, and you never know where those answers might be. So I have to, constantly question things and kind of make sure that I keep moving forward and learning new things. Always. And, that can be complicated because there's a lot of transitory periods between, being somewhere and being somewhere else. Over the years, I've always sought to make myself better. The Lord knows that I'm lacking in most ways, but with children coming up, something clicked in me several years ago, about 5 years ago, and I was like, oh my Lord, I've got kids, I've I was 40 or so. Maybe it was longer than 5 years ago, but I was around 40. And all these things started clicking in my head. I was like, oh my God, it's not just me anymore. I've got more. I've got. Oh my goodness, I've got to make sure these. Oh my Lord, and it was, so it's one of those things of like, you change and you want to grow, you want to be different, you want to be better, you want to adapt with the times and be able to understand what's going on, so that you can propel the things you love off into the future, to a future that probably will not include you at all times, but you want to be there in some ways. You want to be, you want to be a foundation that holds things up. And of course, to do that, you've got to change with time as well. The ground's going to get wet, the ground's going to get dry. So the reality of it is that you always got to be changed. You always got to be learning. In fact, I've heard it said, if you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not growing, you're dying. And that's the truth. And that's the ultimate wisdom. You always got to be growing. So, some of the things, I always, with that being said, and me trying to take on a new skill and to be able to verbally explain things and talk about things in a level that, I've only had to do from a written perspective. There's so many questions in life. It's kind of hard to abandon those questions in life. And I keep my mind pretty open to things just because of the fact that I want to know what's going on. Whenever I hear conversations on whatever kind of medium or see it or read it or whatever, it's like, I know what's going on behind that. I know the nuts and bolts behind it. Of course, I have that kind of history. I have a little bit of a mechanical history, and I've also an academic history. And when you add those two together, you can unlock some things. Drill down, go deep with something. So, there are several things that I've been drilling down and going deep with lately, and those are, I'm one of those people that's kind of aspy. I don't know, the word refers back to Asperger's, and it's no insult. I don't know if I probably am to some degree. In fact, that's kind of the whole conversation starter for one of the first topics that's been popping up recently into my dashboard, and well, let me explain it like this. It's about men and women and differences, And of course, it's kind of goes into the Asperger's part that I was going to there, and when I refer to myself as a little bit aspy, is that it's a phenomenon, I guess you could say, a disorder as such, that runs in males. It happens in females as well. I think it's at a lower incident, and there's. It's people. I think that it's actually on the in the latest psychological book, DMV. What was that thing called? Somebody can correct me on what it is, but it's a DSM. That's what it is. DSM 5 or 6 or 8 or 25 or whatever it's on now. And in there, the newest one, I'm pretty sure that Asperger's went under the autism spectrum. But what it is it's people that really, it's men typically, some females, that don't really experience things emotionally like other people. They don't pick up on verbal cues, nonverbal cues. They're just, they're very, focused on a particular thing. I think that maybe even the Rain Man guy with the savant, Judge Walker 3 o'clock, that guy was kind of an extreme version of it. But there it doesn't have to be, someone to be on that spectrum. And I think that's why they probably put it under the autism spectrum, just because it is kind of a spectrum. It's probably in that same family. But it could be a light. Someone could be a little bit aspy, and they could be a whole lot aspy. So I don't know that I have that particular disorder, but I think that men in general, a lot of men that are focused, do and are referred to as aspy. So that kind of feeds into this Joe Rogan conversation with Jordan Peterson this past week or so. I forget exactly when it was. But it popped up in my little YouTube red stream, and I listen to things as I drift off to sleep. And wake up during the night, and of course when I drive. And the 15-minute clips are kind of the new thing. That way you can actually say a lot in 15 minutes. But you have to be quick with it. And of course a lot of shows are highly produced, and they can throw in a whole lot more. The attention span of America is just not that long anymore. 15 minutes is about all you can do. So, in the 15-minute clip that I heard from this show, to make me want to listen to a bunch of them, maybe the whole show at some point in time, just to get the larger context. But Jordan Peterson was using some, he got into this tussle over there with Channel 4. I think I may have made reference to it. And he, with Channel 4 over in the British Isles, and it's an interview. And I think that she went in already making some assumptions about Jordan Peterson. Now, this is what I get from the show. I'm not involved with it. I wasn't there. I don't know anything about it other than what was discussed on the show. And, well, anyway, they had a big tussle, and it was like he felt like it was being defensive, and it was just, pretty crazy. I'm going to try to find it and link it into this particular discussion. But, he went into talking about, there's just been this huge debate lately about men and women and all this. And of course, with me, from my perspective, it has a lot to do with respect. And I don't think there's respect for anybody in society that's not exactly like you are, until we can find what that respect is. And, we're probably going to have all kinds of issues. And that doesn't mean that I don't have things to be blamed for in it, and I do. But men and women have a whole lot more in common than they do separately. That's my biggest point with it. The biggest point of all, and Jordan Peterson's as well. But the things that really separate a majority of men from a majority of women is the way that things play out at the very end. Those extreme cases that statistically will arise. The people that test outside the normal bounds. And of course, it's like made reference to that being maybe 30% of the population. And then from there, that causes huge amounts of problems. Of course, that seems almost rational, but of course it's one of those deals where, someone that's embattled, this guy's having a battle. I don't know his perspective. Like I said, I can't claim responsibility for what he says. But I like the topic, because I think that, people lose sight of these differences and these extremes that he's talking about, and forget how great it is to have each other around. I know from my perspective in the past several years, I've had, in a relationship with children, a real relationship, where you're working together as a team and you're doing things. I mean, there's nothing greater than that. There's certain things that men can do and certain things that women can do. And of course, women can do the things that men can do, and men can do the things that women can do to a certain degree. But they can't do it as good. They don't do it as well. You need both. It's like it goes back to the whole yin-yang principle. Or the thing that your mom, dad told you, or grandma, whatever you was a kid. Every front has a back. Every inside has an outside. Every tail has a mouth. Everything is, they arise mutually. They're the same thing. They're just looking at it from a different angle. And that's exactly what we all are doing right now, from my perspective. We have created this huge division in America, where it's my team and your team, and the thing of it is that we got more commonalities than we do differences. More commonalities than differences. Well, I most certainly understand that. We all kind of have the same kind of organs, and the same kind of teeth, and the same kind of eyes, and the same kind of everything. A little bit different. Mine's a little different than yours, and yours is a little different than mine, and mine's more beautiful than yours, and yours is more beautiful than mine, and You do that well, and I do this well. And that's it. That's it. That's the answer to it all. Every front has a back. Every inside has an outside. Every mouth has a tail. Except for that one worm. And they arise mutually. Happy Sunday.